Welcome to the Ordinary Marathoner podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Ordinary Marathoner podcast. My name is Coach Scott. I'll be your host today. I got with me a guest. I'm going to introduce him in just a minute. As you can tell, we've got a brand new podcast studio space. Stephanie and her mother spent a lot of hours down here cleaning things up and putting things together, and I really like it. I really think that we're going to be able to do a lot of great things with this space. I do want to thank everyone on Patreon who became a patron of the Ordinary Marathoner podcast. Because of you, we were able to do all this work and we were able to put all this stuff together. It's money from our Patreon account, patreon.com/ordinary marathoner, that we kind of took and we used to create this space. So thank you guys. And again, if you want to become a patron, we'll mention your name on the podcast, and we'll also put your name on the scroll at the end of the podcast. And you can go to patreon.com/ordinary marathoner. So thank you guys for supporting the podcast. The other thing I wanted to mention was we now have Ordinary Marathoner Foundation hoodies up on the website. If you're interested, I believe it's $40 for the, maybe it's $35. I think it's $35 plus $5 for shipping. And any extra proceeds from that will go directly to our foundation. We're doing lots of great work there. I'm actually going to do a whole podcast on that coming up soon. And we'll bring you up to date with everything that's going on there. Really excited about today's podcast guest. Really excited. I'm just going to introduce him first, and I'm going to tell a little bit of a story. But Noah Cass, welcome to the podcast.
You.
Noah,
thank you for having me.
So normally, what I like to do is kind of like lob you a softball, have you tell your story.
Okay.
But I'm going to tell my story first.
Yeah, have at it.
I want to kind of talk about how we got you here. My wife and I were at a local bagel store. We shouldn't be eating bagels, by the way, if we're in training, but whatever. Good carbs. Good carbs. And we saw a magazine on the stand, just a free magazine. Picture of a guy on the front. Got the nice clean cut, the haircut going on. And so I kind of walked by the magazine. I was like, it looks like maybe I should read it, but I just leave stuff there for everybody else. Stephanie took the magazine, brought it home. She started reading the article, and she said, "We got to talk to this guy." Marine Corps, ultra runner,
yes.
Lost some of your hearing in your ear.
My left ear.
Yeah. All of these are things that Stephanie and I, our dads are both Marines. We do a lot of work with our foundation, with the deaf community, and we're trying to get involved with military veterans. So what we found out was that you had done a documentary called Tougher Than a Tank.
Yep.
So we watched it and loved it. Amazon Prime, by the way. Tougher Than a Tank.
Tougher Than a Tank. And iTunes.
You got it all down. You've been selling this thing, I see.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
But it's definitely worth it, and I'm glad to have you here today. I left out a lot of the details in between here, so why don't I throw it to you? Why don't you talk about the documentary and what it was, how it came about, and take it from there.
So the documentary Tougher Than a Tank follows my run from Somers, Connecticut, where I live, to Lake George, New York, where a friend of mine who I served in the Marine Corps with lives. He was wounded during our second deployment. He was shot in the head twice by friendly fire and wasn't supposed to live and has flatlined 3 times, but he is very much alive and will not let you forget that. So Eddie Ryan is the Marine in Lake George. So the run was about 145 miles, depending on GPS and map, and some right around there. And we did it in 2.5 days a few years ago. And I'm good friends with a filmmaker, Tim O'Donnell, and his buddy, John Mercer. They're incredible filmmakers, and they've worked on a lot of veteran issues and a lot of veteran films. And I let them know that I was going to do this run to New York, and they were all about it. So they rode with us in the van the whole way.
Did they train with you?
No.
No.
So I have 2.
Okay, I kind of thought that was one of your 2 friends named Tim.
Tim Sheehan.
Okay, yep. So there's Tim the runner and Tim
the filmmaker.
We didn't know that they were. We didn't know they were the same person, but
So there's Tim O'Donnell, the filmmaker, and Timmy Sheehan, the runner.
All right.
So there's two guys that I ran with for about 4 years, consistently every Tuesday, every Thursday, and then we ended up doing long runs every Saturday. And all our runs were done. We finished before 7 a.m. because Kevin and I had, we both have 3 kids, and now Timmy has 1. So we needed to be home before the kids woke up.
Sure.
It was kind of the deal. So I ran with them, and I pulled them into ultras. We did the Trap Rock 50K in Bloomfield, Simsbury, right down in there. And I kept telling them about Eddie and about our service, his service, and how I always wanted to do something for him, and I could never figure it out. And then one day I just kind of told both of them on a run, I was like, I'm going to run to Lake George. And they were like, okay, sounds good. We'll help you train for it. And then the next run, Kevin said, I'm going to do it with you if that's okay. And I was like, yes, please, thank you. And then a little while after that, Timmy was like, well, I might as well come too. So they were on board, and we trained the whole time. Well, it was about 7 months building up for it. And Kevin ran with me step for step the whole way. Timmy ran as far as he could the first day and ended up missing a turn while my brother-in-law was running with him.
Right. So that was in the documentary.
So
I do have a little issue with this, by the way. Marine Corps, Semper Fi, don't leave anyone behind.
Well, it was an unwritten thing that if we were going, we were going to keep going. And we had the van to kind of watch who we were. And I think in the film, there's a point where you see me like trying to figure, after running 60 miles, 65 miles or so, I'm like trying to figure out the math of where Timmy could have gone wrong. I'm like, 3 foot, I can't math. He probably missed this turn. He's that way somewhere. And the van left and went and found him. But they ran pretty much the whole way with me. Kevin ran the whole way with me. And since then, Kevin has started his own nonprofit, which it's called 2 Feet for Good. So he does, last year he ran around the border of Connecticut, or 2 years ago, raising money for this little boy, Samuel.
That's a long run.
It is.
Is that more than 145? I bet that's more than 145.
Yeah, it was 243 or 234, somewhere up there. So he's a one-upper.
Yeah, he didn't. Yeah, he wasn't going to stop. He's
but a good one, in a good way. So this year he's actually doing it's a run for rare traits, and he's doing 10 50-milers in a row.
Like every day, or like
so he's running 10 back-to-back 50-milers. He and his wife sold all of their stuff, bought an RV, and they took their 3 kids and the dog on the road. So they're traveling the U.S. So he'll be doing that. I can send you the information on him. But the tank run, they helped to circle back. They helped me get through that. And I wanted to do it as a fundraiser for Eddie.
Sure.
Because his out-of-pocket medical costs were over $50,000, $60,000 a year. Yeah. And that was on top of what the VA was providing, which wasn't much at the time. So the VA had scaled back therapy sessions for Eddie.
Right.
So I wanted to get some funds to give to him, and then I wanted to get attention to him and then veterans like him to see the care gap going on. What ended up happening was I set a $1,500 goal for fundraising, and I hit that in a day. Less than a day, actually. Yeah. So we went to 5,000 and we met that. And then we went to 10,000. And then I said, well, I'm not going to up it anymore. It's just whatever comes in, comes in.
Sure.
And it was around 15,000 online in donations. And then we had a box that Kevin actually made, that we just put all the cash and check donations in. We didn't even really count it. We just handed it to them.
Wow.
And said, this is from us to you. And, that we gave him, raised quite a bit of money for him, raised a lot of awareness. And after we finished the run, his therapy sessions had gone back up. They have since gone back down. There's a whole lot of other things involved, but
sure. And I tell you, one of the things that came across on the documentary, and I think it's sort of it's there, but in a subtle way, I think it hits you as a viewer a little bit more was how, I mean, here's a guy who can't walk because of his experience in the military, and the things he does for us, he did for us, and how he doesn't get more services and therapy now from our own government that kind of put him in the position. It's, I think I think the scope of which is hard to define when you don't know a specific story to put it to.
Yeah.
And then so to watch the story and see his dad, who by the way is he's like the superstar in the documentary.
His dad is incredible, and his mom she's a little quiet in the film. In real life, she's
a house of fire.
She is.
Yeah.
Angie, I love her to death, and Chris is. And he's a superhero. Just
well,
like
you see what he does for his son, and it's like, wow. And then as a parent, you're like, yeah, you would do anything you could for your kid, but man, he really, he carries him around, he helps him everywhere, and he doesn't take no for an answer. He's quite the person.
He is. I'm very happy to be involved in their lives and them involved in mine. And, there's the whole, I think filmmaking in general, especially documentaries, is all about giving perspective. And after we finished the tank run, Eddie and his dad came down to Summers, and I presented him with the check. One of those big, I always wanted to do that, so I got one of the big ones. Handed to him. I only ordered one, and I realized if I didn't sign it right, it was going to...
Right,
anyway,
make sure you spell it.
I did, everything was fine. But he and his dad came down, and we went out to lunch right down the street.
Sure.
And on the way back to the cars, I was walking with my father, and out of nowhere, he just kind of... Eddie and Chris were in front of us, and Chris was pushing Eddie. And out of nowhere, my dad just kind of said, hey, that could have been us. And when he said that, it was like, whoa, that just puts a whole new spin on all of this. And that was a perspective that I'm sure my father had felt before and my mom, but I'd never heard it. They'd heard my side of things, but I'd never heard their perspective of things. And I like that the film provides that view into our wounded warriors' lives.
Right.
When people, I feel somewhat bad when I say it occasionally, but when people die in combat, it's definitive. That's the end. And it's sad, and we mourn and we memorialize and celebrate their lives, but it's the end. When someone's wounded in combat, especially to the extent that Eddie is, they feel that every single day. And that is Chris and Eddie's life, and Angie, and that's their life every single day. So that was a big push behind, I need to help them, and they'll say, you don't need to help us, but sure. I felt like I needed to.
Right.
So that was a big thing.
That's Proud Marine.
Yeah.
Proud Marine. And his father is
also a Marine. Yeah.
Well, what's interesting to me is my father is in his late 70s, and being a Marine, I know that I can never say, my dad was a Marine, but sometimes I don't hear that from Marines. Sometimes they just kind of let that go, but my father never does. And then so to hear him say that actually in the film, was kind of neat, because it's kind of I know my dad says that, but I don't know if that's actually a thing. But
it's for life. It's a brotherhood for life.
Yeah, and you make a good point too, because I think also for a lot of us, especially nowadays, where a lot of people have jobs and they sit down at work and they stare at a screen all day long, and the casualty numbers come over, and this number died, and it's sad, and that every number has a story behind it, but if you don't see it firsthand, it's just the number. And then, for everyone that dies, there's countless people who have been injured in some way, lost a limb, can't walk. And I think, the documentary certainly brings that to life and brings those numbers makes it a little more personal, because you see how much Eddie's life has been affected because of this. And then for you personally, when you're talking about, I obviously I wasn't there, but what are the chances that it could have been you sitting in Eddie's spot when that happened? And, was it dumb luck? Is it, you don't know. It's
one of those things that you think about a lot, until you don't think about it anymore.
Yeah.
So it's and getting to turning the corner to the not thinking about it anymore is a big corner. And then it's still, you go back around it.
I was going to say, and then you probably, every once in a while, you probably feel guilty for not thinking about it, man, it's, that's gotta be tough. And, we do some work with military vets in our foundation. So I talk to a bunch of guys who were over in Afghanistan or Iraq and, they always kind of call I think it's also a military kind of thing where they hold the stories pretty close and it's hard to kind of get them to tell them,
Yeah.
And I don't know, but we talked a little bit beforehand also about, the VA.
Yeah.
And trying to work around the VA. And that's kind of it's almost become a cliche, right? How to navigate the VA is like a nightmare. And, I know it's one of the things that we would, as a foundation, are looking into trying and helping at a certain point or trying to do what we can. But, what was, when you see that, guys like Eddie having trouble, does it bother you? Obviously it bothers you, but, to what end does it is that like a common, when you see your Marine Corps friends, is it like a common, I can't believe they're doing this, I can't believe they're doing that?
It's more common than I'd like to admit. It's interesting though, because 10 years ago when I used the VA healthcare system, it was actually a little more than 10 at this point. It was a bear, and I would get frustrated and just hang up the phone and I'll just deal with it. I'm not going to worry about it. That recently, the last 3 years, I've gotten back into the VA system because I don't want to miss out on the things that Department of Defense and the VA kind of share as far as health issues and concerns that are unique to veterans that I don't think private practices can quite grasp. I don't know how, and maybe it was just a lucky day. I signed up, got a primary care, and I've been incredibly lucky with the VA at this point. But I also don't require in-depth services.
Sure, like Eddie.
I'm kind of an in and out, see my doctor, go kind of guy at this point. So Eddie had been up to 3 to 4 therapy sessions a month, and at that point the VA kind of said, you're not going to make any more progress, so we're going to put you on a maintenance plan. Basically, is you're going to have once a month, you're going to come in and make sure you're at the same level. But if you had looked at Eddie's progress the whole way through, he was consistently improving, and then they would have to recertify that he needed the care, so it would take a break in sessions and he would kind of regress and then make progress again. He was consistently improving, and they took the services from him. And I actually, in the film, Chris, when I called them on the first day, Chris let me know. And it was, I hate to say it was perfect timing, but it came at like the right time. We were 30-something miles into the first day, and I was like, man, this is getting, this is why we're doing it.
Yeah.
And the other guys were like, whoa, all right, let's go. So
right. I remember that. It's funny, you watch the documentary and there are certainly some moments that stick into my head. Eddie's dad, certainly one. But as you're refreshing me, you've probably seen it a bunch of times.
Yeah.
I watched it once. It's actually rewatchable. I would certainly watch it again. One of the better done documentaries, by the way. Tim did an amazing job, I think, there. I was speaking to you before, and we watched a lot of running documentaries. And so, we not necessarily have a ranking, but, we were like, wow, we were finished. We're like, wow, that was a good one.
I think because Tim and John aren't really in the endurance sports community.
Sure.
They aren't really, so they pull the other perspectives really well. And then I kind of help them out coming into that side of it. And it took me a long time to really just open up to them. And I realized that in order to get the film right, I couldn't hold back from anything. And, there's millions of vets in the country. We all have stories. And I was lucky enough to find 2 award-winning filmmakers that were willing to use me as a subject. It was like, I'm not going to waste this opportunity. I'm going to get my story out there. Hopefully it helps other guys open up and girls open up and talk about things. So I think that helped. And then they don't back down when it starts to get a little. They're like, no, keep going with this. We'll figure it out. It's like, okay. I don't know why I'm sweating in an interview, but they were really good about it. So
yeah, and it's kind of a unique, sort of like a unique point on that is that being an ultra runner, you do these races where you go and you show up, and there's you said you did a 50-mile race. Mm-hmm. You're sitting in probably amongst a couple hundred people that are also running 50 miles.
Yeah.
And so after a while, it becomes like normal.
Yeah.
But you forget how not normal running an ultra is.
Mm-hmm.
And so to bring someone like Tim in from the outside, and it kind of really, that, like you said, it helps the storytelling a little, because you tend, especially you're a Marine, you're a humble guy. You're not going to say, I did 50. Well, maybe you would. I don't know. but it's good for him to kind of be able to weave the story that way. Now, one of the things I wondered, we were like, Stephanie, we heard the story, like, all right, you ran from Somers, Connecticut, which is 2 towns down.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not far away, all the way to Lake George, which I've been to Lake George tons of times. I grew up in New York. So I kind of know the area, and I'm like, I know the drive is long. Yeah. So the run must be absolutely incredible. But the question was, how did you pick your path, and how did you decide? I mean, you must have had it in advance.
So I used like the old school MapQuest or Google Directions, and I did that first, and then I used another app called Map Pedometer, and I kind of zoomed way in, and so the Google Maps, they put you on all the main roads.
Sure.
So I tried to look for, like, instead of Route 9, I used old Route 9. And like the ones that ran parallel that were pretty sketchy looking on maps. So I did that, and we actually drove the way up.
Yeah.
So I could introduce Tim and Kevin to the Ryans, and then also to make sure that what we were going to run was runnable.
Sure.
And we kind of drove our way up, and I'm glad we did. There were a few dead ends. There are a few spots that closed for the winter in the Berkshires and we ran in early May, and we weren't sure if it was going to be open yet. So we kind of rerouted a few times, but it was, and even on the run, we had to change a couple. There was a bridge that was out that we had construction we weren't thinking about, but we ended up adding about 1.5 miles or 2 miles to the day. And we got to the end, and the bridge was right there, completely intact.
There you
so
go.
I was like, "Why didn't? Okay, it's fine."
You guys wade across.
I'll take it. But it was.
Where did you end up crossing the Hudson? Way up north, or?
So we crossed. Where did we cross into New York? We hit a little corner of Vermont.
Yeah.
And then went up through.
I feel like there's a bridge in Albany somewhere. There's also that.
We went.
I don't know.
We were above Albany, and we went. Is it Fort Edward? Maybe.
There's a bridge up there.
Yeah.
Is it? Because I was just trying to think. Because I know this like south of Albany fairly well.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, what bridge could I run across? And I couldn't really think of any.
It was
Fairmount Bridge. Maybe they have a path. I don't know.
And we ended up. So the last day. Where were we the last day? We did the rail trail. Like the Queensberry, that area rail trail, which was 13
That's
miles.
pretty cool.
So our last day was a half marathon.
Right, so. But it's good that you get on a trail and you kind of get away from traffic.
There's no traffic.
And did you have did you know where you were stopping each day, or were you just kind of playing it by ear?
So when we left Somers, the van kind of went, and they were filming and doing stuff in between. And the first day, we basically did every 10 miles. Have them stop every 10 miles. And we would meet up with them. So that was between an hour and 40 or 2 hours. So, and they would drive by and ask if we needed anything. But really, it was every 10 miles. And then by the end of it, they just kind of hung out near us. Like, all right, at any time. We had a hiccup when Timmy missed the turn the first day. And the van had to find them. But it was whenever we needed them to stop. One of us had a phone. We could call them and say, hey, meet us in 5 minutes. And they would be there.
So the last thing I kind of wanted to talk about, or I wanted to bring, just sort of, I guess, to wrap it up in a good way, was that at the end of the movie, Eddie's got the hand cycle going.
Yeah.
And like that's a really feel good, because you know he's not walking, and really most of the movie when you watch him you wonder how capable he is to do something like this, and now he's on the hand cycle. Now, I mean, is he embracing the hand cycle? It looked like he's embracing the hand cycle.
He did. So that hand cycle was made by Orange County Choppers.
Oh wow!
So it's like this special, and that was
Right.
really cool. And he had done the Marine Corps. I don't know if it was the Marine Corps Marathon or if he did the half distance. He did it with a guide a few years, well, probably 10 years before we did the tank run.
Yep.
And he had, in between then, he had a seizure and kind of regressed quite a bit. And since then, he's had another one and regressed. But he worked out, and you see him on the hand cycle. When they were filming him with the hand cycle, like the workout at therapy, that was after we had done the tank run and before we ran with the hand cycle. So he was prepping for it.
Right.
And I think you can see it in the film. Like, his arms are massive.
Yeah.
So when I ran with him around Lake George, I was on the brakes the whole time because there was something wrong with the freewheel. But every time it caught, he would like launch out of my arms and he would laugh every time. And then I couldn't keep up with him. And he just kept cranking on. And I was like, oh man, I can't do this. But he wants to get back in the hand cycle. And I plan to get back into running, especially with him. Because, it's funny, after the tank run,
Yeah.
I kind of I didn't walk away from running altogether, but it was like physically, emotionally, once we left Lake George, I was kind of like, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
And I ran quite a bit in between or after that. And then that next January, I was like, I'm not going to run for a year just to take time away from it. I'm going to lift weights as heavy as I can and see what happens. And then it's like this frail body going into the gym. And then I bulked up, and then it was like, I'm not built to do this. I back into the running, and I've slowly been getting back into it now. So it's been.
I mean, that probably, the pressure of like saying, all right, I'm going to run to Lake George.
Yeah.
And then someone saying, oh, I'm going to film that.
Yeah.
And then two of your friends saying, all right, we'll go along with you. I guess one of the understated things is like, you actually had to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was
like, there's no turning back at a certain point.
And
it's
there's kind of two schools of thought on that. And it's, oh man, I really need to do this and I can't fail. I can't do this. And then there's the one that Kevin, Timmy, and I, when we were leaving my driveway, I kind of looked at them and we were light jog. And I looked at them and was like, this is all we have to do for the next 2.5 days. This is it. We don't have to worry about anything else.
That's true.
This is all we need to do. Just keep moving. And that was great.
Sounds good in the first 30 steps.
That was great until that afternoon when I was like, oh God,
Where's
this
Tim?
is what I have to keep doing. but then it was like, oh, I remember why we're doing this. And that we had some friends join us for the last day. It was actually my old boss, Lori Filippini.
It was kind of nice.
She helped me a lot in that run, the build up for it, and then the run. It was incredible that she came, and her husband ran with us the whole last day, and she and a couple of her friends did the last 5K with us, and we dropped them. So we had run 140 something miles. And it was all adrenaline at that point. Like, we were putting down 7-minute miles, just boom. We just took off, and I was like, wow, this is almost race pace for a 5K. And Kevin was like, I don't feel anything. Let's just keep going. So we kept going. And to kind of sidebar from Lori, my initial inspiration for the run came from, she had a guest speaker come in to work, and it was Rohan Freeman.
Okay.
He's an engineer. He's from Jamaica. He lives in Hartford or West Hartford now, but he's done the 7 summits. He's done Everest. He's done the poles. He's just this incredible people. And he's like, you just meet him and man, this guy and his enthusiasm, it's infectious.
Sure.
And as soon as he left that day, I was like, I'm running to Florida. It's like, that's a little far.
Right.
Let's scale that back. It's like, I'm running to Quantico. I'm going to run to the Marine Corps Monument. I'm going to run to D.C. And I was like, no, let's just wait a little bit. And then I started to think more and more about Eddie. And I was like, this is a doable thing if I train for it. And it's for a better cause than I could ever find.
Personal.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Noah Cass. The documentary is called Tougher Than a Tank. Amazon Prime, iTunes.
Yeah.
I think it was it number 18 documentary last time I saw?
It was the first day on iTunes, it broke. I think the highest it got was 11th or 13th on the list. And that blew my mind.
Yeah.
It's still funny to turn on Amazon and see my face.
Well, it's like,
oh.
I posted your link the other day and there you were.
Yeah.
There you were.
So
So you're all over the
sharing,
place. You're all over the place. We'll certainly shoot out the link to the movie and information about the movie when we release the podcast. Excited to do that.
Yeah.
And like I said, I thought it was awesome. I thought, and I shared it to a whole bunch of friends that, I knew would be interested, and I'm sure my father, Marine, would want to watch it. And really an amazing achievement. Congratulations on getting it done. Impressive. And what was the final tally? You don't know because you just handed a box.
Yeah, it was probably around 16,000, a little over 16,000.
And still he needs more.
Yeah.
And still he needs more. Obviously, anything the foundation can do to help out the situation or to help out just in general. We talked earlier before. It's actually very hard to navigating to wanting to help. Sometimes you want to help, but you don't know where. And especially, we're still a fledgling kind of newer nonprofit, and it's we're more heart than dollars at this point. But the heart is going to carry us for quite some way. And anything we can do to help, we would enjoy partnering up with you or even just watching your next adventure, whatever that may be. So Noah Cass, everybody.
Thank you.
We're going to wrap it up for the day. And that's about all I got for you today. Remember, the hoodies are online. You can find them over at the Facebook page. I think I tweeted them out over at our at the charity account over on Twitter, OMF Charity. And until then, remember, every day is an ordinary day unless you make it extraordinary. Noah, you certainly make a lot of days, at least 2.5 days.
2.5.
Extremely extraordinary. Thank you so much.
Thank you.